Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush.
And it's his wingman, Alex.
And today we're going to be reviewing Damn by Kendrick Lamar.
We
And
are indeed.
if you've been watching the show for a while, you know that we're both huge Kendrick Lamar fans. And when he released Humble, I was in a trance and a shock. It's a good song. It's a real good song.
It is. This album is filled with great banners. It is indeed.
So, here's I'm gonna give my spiel a little bit.
Okay.
This is a good album, and conceptually, it's a really good album. And there's a lot of things going on, and probably one of his more complex and you have to think a lot more to understand what's going on rather than it being surface level, like Good Kid, Mad City, and To Pimp Butterfly. That being said, I would say sonically, it's not his best album. I prefer Good Kid, Mad City to Pimp a Butterfly than this. And Section 80 is, I would say, more of a mixtape than an actual album to me.
Yep.
And again, that being said, this is still a really good fucking album.
Well, it's Kendrick Lamar. It's going to be good, basically.
There's a lot of people complaining that, oh, he's gone mainstream and he's gone this and that. But, I think the song Humble was more mainstream song. You can tell the production style was very boom bap. It was...
Yeah.
It seemed very surface level and very just not so complex.
It had that bouncy piano line, and it's quite catchy, the whole thing.
Yeah, but I think now here's where I differ. That song is much more complex in the sense of this whole album.
Yeah.
So the whole album, from my theory or whatever I got from it, was that he's talking about his conflict with God, and there are two sides to Kendrick Lamar. There's the one more humble, religious, soft-spoken Kendrick Lamar. Then there's this Kendrick Lamar the media perceives him to be like this rich black man who makes tons of money off his rap albums, who has this ego, who has this drive, this passion. And those two, this album seems like a conflict between those two, because some of these songs are much more soft-spoken, where he's talking about religion and his family and stuff like that. But then he contrasts that completely with songs like Humble and DNA, where he's going all out and just calling people out and really just giving a face to that Kendrick that the media perceives.
Yeah, the one recurring theme to this album I got is he says, "Ain't nobody praying for me," so much during this, and why do you think that is?
So I feel so a lot of these songs, one song is called Loyalty, but there are a lot of songs on here that have themes of he wishes he doesn't know if he can trust the people around him, kind of like the song Bitch Don't Kill My Vibe, where he's talking about people are just clinging to him for the fame now because he made a hit, and people are just there because of what he did rather than what he's doing. Like in the song Loyalty, he says, "Is it unconditional when the Rari don't start?" So he's saying how people are around him just for the money, and they only come back when they actually need things from him.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's saying that with the line about praying, he's saying that there are no real supporters left. He said his grandma's passed away, and there's no one besides them who actually care about him the way that his grandma's did. And everyone there is just for the fame or for the publicity, and they're not there to make it for him personally. And he has the same conflict in the song Love, where he's saying, he says things like, it's a heartfelt love song, but he talks about whether the love with him is real or it's not real, or you're there just for the fame. And it's a real really good dichotomy he's creating with knowing or not, with the complex of knowing and not knowing who are the real friends and who are not.
One thing that just came to me randomly here, so I'll say it quickly before I look like a fool. Okay, so you're saying it was his conflicts with being both religious and a hardcore type guy, sort of? Is that what you were kind of saying?
Yeah, so it's the religious, more soft-spoken, and the more
it sounded a bit like
more hardcore traditional rapper.
Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of Big Sean's I Decided slightly, but I find it hard to explain why. That album had a lot of religious problems as well, it had Saturday morning prayers, so yeah, I mean, the main thing I got from this was that this seemed like the most light-hearted, even though it wasn't. It sounded like the most light-hearted Kendrick Lamar album so far.
I think it is lighthearted, but at the same time, it's a bit. It's much more than the surface level people are taking it to seem.
Definitely.
I think the two songs that define it the best are Pride and Humble. So Pride, he's talking about the 7 deadly sins. Obviously, one of them is pride, and you shouldn't be so egotistical. And he's saying that he wants to be proud. He wants to be proud of the stuff he makes, but he knows that in a religious sense, he's not supposed to be, or not like to an excessive point. But and that's one side of Kendrick Lamar. The song Humble, on the other hand, he's talking about how like he's the best fucking rapper in the game.
Yeah.
He's the king. He's doing this. He's doing that, and no one can touch him. And that's the other side that he really wants to be, but he knows because of what he's been taught, what he's been brought to realize, is that he should be the initial Kendrick Lamar, the less prideful, less sinful kind of humble or Kendrick Lamar.
I mean, that's something everybody says. Like, every rapper says he's the greatest. But for Kendrick Lamar, it might be true. It pretty much is true. But yeah, you're right. He probably wants to be humble in a way that he was taught as a kid. Because that'll be where his primary motive of thought would go to. Because it build up his ego way too much. I don't know if he has that much of an ego, especially considering how great of the music he made. Definitely not Kanye West level, but...
No, I think both he's playing both sides as more of a exaggeration or like a bit more excessive than they really are, just to prove his point.
That's the thing though. People are saying that a lot of Kendrick Lamar's the personas in his songs. I saw a video on this, like they're exaggerations of parts of him, so it's not like a set character.
Yeah, which I agree with. I think he's not really this egotistical and this crazy. He's, from the interviews I've seen, he's very down to earth and very like critical of himself and of what he does more than we are of him.
So I think the U2 fan club can reform because they were actually quite good on this album. I'd say on the song XXX. Would you agree?
XXX was probably one of my favorite songs because the first half is him talking about like he's loyal to his family and he'll do anything for his family, and he.
Yeah.
And the very intro when he talks about how school isn't cool for black youth anymore, and that production is just so hardcore in the very first half. Then comes in Bono with his surprisingly well put together chorus section, and they continue that into the second verse where he's talking just more slow and haunting, and it's just U2 was almost more of a vocal sample than actual feature to me.
Well, the whole band was playing. The whole band
in
were
the second
jamming.
half.
Yeah, on the second half. But the guitar comes in. Like the first half, I was thinking, where is U2? Where are my boys? Where are my boys from Ireland? Because I do like U2. I'm just going to talk about
the
something.
Joshua Tree is one of the best pop rock albums of all time, I would say.
And so is Achtung Baby and War, arguably, if you like that sort of thing. So
yeah,
hearing them in such a favourable light, just jamming weirdly for something for Kendrick to rap over, essentially, and Bono's great vocal part, it was inspiring to me. Even though it did feel like, in a sense, it was as if Kendrick brought them back to that level, as if they had gotten touched by Kendrick's magic. It felt like that a little bit, sort of.
So the one song that was probably the most lyrically impactful to me was Fear. Now, I listened to that song, I want to say like 10 times. I listened to the song way too much.
So that's like 70 minutes, because it's like a 7-minute long tune?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about it. So it took a couple times to realize this, but the first verse he's talking about his childhood age, when he's young. And he's talking about
weird dialogue between him and a like abusive father who's like, I don't know, like, if you're not going to be scared of anyone, you'll be scared of me. He was like, is that really the way he was brought up?
I feel like that's actually his mom. It could be both, but
I don't know. It felt like his father because it was like obviously him saying it, but obviously it's probably more his mother would be more.
No, because I think he said, "Boy, if you say something, I'll tell your dad." That's why I think it's his mom.
Yeah, it probably completely was.
But it could have been either way, or it could be a mix, or just talking about how his parents reacted. Either way, he's talking about like fearing death at the very young age as a child because he's scared of what his parents will do to him. The
Wow.
second verse is as a teenager seeing his friends dying around him and living in the ghetto by cops or drugs or gangs or whatever it is, seeing his friends dying and fearing he's going to become the same way. And the last one is in his adulthood after releasing To Pimp a Butterfly, he
Yeah.
feels like he's not good enough and his anxieties and his mental issues are just tearing him apart. He thinks that he won't be as good as he is, or he won't be living up to the hype that people are really portraying him to be.
So this is a really good song about talking about different things that he feared during his life. Like his biggest fear when he was 27 was being judged. So,
Yes.
he's a still really young guy. The fact he can look back in his life with such dexterity and comprehension, I wouldn't be able to look back on the biggest fears of my life now. Well, maybe if I thought about it. We don't want to get too depressed on this show, but this was such a starkly imaginative song, and the theme of humbleness returns. It's like some of the best lines on this album are definitely on here.
One other thing I do want to talk about are the features on here.
We talked about U2 already, but Rihanna and Zakari as well.
Yeah, so Rihanna was okay. She didn't really bring much to the table, and Loyalty was not the best song on here. It was a good song, but it wasn't the best.
The thing with Loyalty was it felt like Kendrick Lamar going back into the pop realm, like on Bad Blood by Taylor Swift and Don't Wanna Know by Maroon 5, where he's still good, the best parts of those songs, but he feels like more in a pop context. But I actually thought that Kendrick and Rihanna sounded really good together, and there was like an electric chipmunk vocal effect throughout the whole song that was kind of cool and catchy, but could also be seen as annoying. And it's probably the closest to a straight pop jam I've heard Kendrick do ever, although there's a few others on here after that, but like the Zakari feature. But yeah, I like the Rihanna feature. I think she's really at a peak in her career, and I'm glad that she got to work with Kendrick on here.
So now the two songs I want to talk about again are Lust and Love. So Lust is him talking about like the rap lifestyle and talking about waking up, drugs, money, girls, whatever. And
I'm sorry,
how boring it is.
I just need to talk about something I wrote in my notes that just cracked me up. So how whenever we talk about a song, usually I'll say good atmosphere, and then I wrote the sphere of Atmos. Oh, I must have been on drugs writing that. The sphere of Atmos sounds like a weird science fiction world. Yeah.
Yeah, that song. So that song is like, I want to say, the more generic rapper Kendrick Lamar like persona speaking.
Yeah.
Because he talks about these things that rappers like praise. They're like, this is what we get to do, and this is what things that we get to do. And he talks about, in a sense, like, it isn't all that it's meant to be. It's really boring and generic, and it's not really as fun as other rappers make it out to be. And it's a really good introspective piece where he's just talking like, he's like, yeah, it really isn't all that it makes out. The rap lifestyle isn't even that good. But I think the chorus is really interesting because it's him having sex with another woman, but he's also regretting it at the same time because he's doing it out of lust and not love.
Yeah.
Because there's that religious Kendrick Lamar who abides to the Bible and doesn't believe in and tries to avoid those 7 deadly sins, one of which is lust.
Oh my god, just hearing you talk about it makes me realise like how much depth there really is to this album. Like, Love is obviously more in a song where he is in love with someone, like with Zakari.
So the song Love, on the other hand, with Zakari, it's probably my least favorite song on the album, just because it's a bit, I mean, it hasn't grown on me yet. The other songs have all grown on me, and I've ended up liking them. I think this is his first love song. I want to say.
Yeah, I wrote that. I'm pretty sure this has to be the first like real love song he's ever done. I'm pretty sure.
And this is probably his most polarizing song in the same sense, because a lot of people like it and a lot of people really don't. This isn't the worst song ever. Like, it's still a good song. I mean, I still really enjoy it. And the meaning is really good because he's talking about whether the love he has with, I assume it's his current fiance or wife, I think, is real or not. He's just saying, like, are you in love with me because I'm Kendrick Lamar? Would you love me if I was broke? Would you love me if I drove a really shitty car?
Yeah.
And it's the concept of loyalty that he wants. He wants the security of someone being there because he's him and not because he's someone else, and not because he's famous or not because of the money he has. The first time I listened to this album, I was like, okay, I was a bit taken aback. I was like, this isn't that good. I'm not seeing it. But then the more I listened to it, the lyrics, the more I connected the dots, I really fell in love with this album to the point where it's just fantastic to listen to. And every song on here has some sort of element about the seven deadly sins or something like that, where he's referring to his religious and more spiritual side.
And it's really easy to listen to over and over again, because the last song, Duckworth, which we'll talk in more detail very soon, but the album starts and ends with a gunshot death and, like, blood. That is one of the most out of nowhere, unexpected opens to an album ever. Like, he's talking about wanting to help a blind woman find whatever she's lost, and then she just kills Kendrick out of nowhere. Just...
I mean, there was supposed to be an album dropping today, so we're recording this on Sunday, so the people are assuming there's an album dropping today?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to cover that next week, obviously, if that happens, but people were saying that with the Kin of Limbs, because that's such a short Radiohead album, like just over 30 minutes. They thought there'd be a part 2. They had to wait another 5 years for more Radiohead, so I don't know. We'll have to really just see what happens. Like, Future released 2 albums within 2 weeks, and that happened. I like the fact that happened, because I'm a Future fan, but it just depends whether it happens or not, obviously. Yeah, so...
Yeah, so I want to talk about the last 2 songs, God and Duck.
Just amazing songs. So these are some of the best Kendrick Lamar songs ever, I'd say.
Yeah, so God is really good because he's flaunting his fame and saying, this is what it feels like to be God. But then he also has this introspective part where God is looking down and laughing at the fact that he cares about all these material possessions and stuff like that. And he brings this dichotomy about living in the hood, and now he's living this lifestyle, and he's proud of it. But again, he doesn't want to show that pride because he feels like that's not something that a good spiritual religious man should do.
Yeah, and so many rappers say that's what God feels like. Like, so many rappers say they feel like God. Like Eminem and Kanye, most notably on the songs I Am a God and a Rap God. But this feels the most interesting way of showing that, obviously, with the separation between Kendrick and God looking down on him. He just makes such interesting lyrics on these songs.
Yeah, especially with like the idea of like God is looking down and saying, "Yeah, you're a good rapper, you're famous, but none of this matters because once you die, you're gonna come here anyways. You're not gonna have any of those things anyways. So do what you love, but you shouldn't be doing it for the money." And that's his whole thing.
I think if he's doing it, it should be for the... He says at least he's doing it for the legacy, though. He'll be remembered, definitely, Kendrick.
Yeah. So even throughout this album, multiple times he says things like, I'm doing this for me and not for you. I don't care if you stay with me or leave me. This is for me. I'm making this album because I want to make this album, which is super respectable because many rappers make albums just to make hits and make money. He's doing it because this is what he needs to say and get off his chest.
And some of these might be hits. I think Humble charted at number 20 in the UK, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I don't really look at the charts that often, but I'm pretty sure it got almost a number 1 here.
Is it bad that I check it every day?
No, it's not a bad thing. I just normally, that's not the first thing I check. I think if I did start checking, I would check more often.
I'm just interested in what becomes a hit. Like, we were talking about Future a minute ago, but Mask Off is becoming a really big hit.
Well, Mask Off has one of the best beats for any trap song I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, the flute is just amazing on that. So anyway, Duckworth. I had no idea what Duckworth meant before looking it up, but that is actually Kendrick Lamar's real surname.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar Duckworth.
Wow. I don't know why I'm surprised by that. I didn't think Kendrick Lamar was his real full name, but yeah, it's an alright name, I guess, if we're rating names.
Now, this is a really cool song. This song is about Anthony Tiffith, who's like who's the founder of Top Dog Entertainment, which is his record label.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because he's talking about the life of Anthony Tiffith, but on a song named Duckworth. And it doesn't become apparent why he's talking about this until the very end, because Anthony robs a store where Kendrick's dad is working, and if he had killed Kendrick's dad, there would be, he says, because if Anthony killed Ducky, Top Dog could be serving life while I grew up without a father and die in a gunfight.
Well, when he said Ducky, I obviously knew that was in relation to some part of some Kendrick, but I didn't think it meant Kendrick's dad. I thought that was actually like a nickname Kendrick Lamar had as a kid, but wow. Yeah, that's really cool. And was this like a real event? I'm quite certain
it is Kendrick's dad.
Was this a real thing that happened?
I think so. I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, there's so much to this album. Like, it might seem simple on the surface, but Kendrick has not dropped the game lyrically at all.
No. There is much more about this album that needs to be said than is apparent to the open eye.
But there's...
Because I think people are really dismissing it. Not dismissing it, but people are just like, oh, all these beats are too mainstream. It's not Kendrick Lamar. But, like, he's saying the same things, just on a different beat.
Well...
And he still has those jazzy elements. Quite a few songs have that more slow, jazzy elements to it. So I don't know what they're
They felt more
about.
like soul R&B to me, but I guess there's a similarity.
Are there any songs we missed? There's a song Yeah, where people think
The most
about Yahweh
fun
or God.
chorus for me, just him going, yeah, yeah. That's like the type of song people hear and think it's just a straight banner when there's actually more to it.
Element was another good song. The beat switch-ups are fucking crazy throughout this whole album. He switches beats so often.
I don't know if you'll agree with this, but do you think he's taken any influence from Drake on Element or a few songs? Like, not too much, but a little bit in the way he's singing.
Now, I don't think it's influence. I think he's purposely mocking his style because of there have been subliminal hits at Drake.
Wow. I like Drake. Please be nice to each other rappers, even though I know that's the point, like subtle rap games.
Yeah, so like, the thing is, like, I'm really, because he has called Drake out in a couple songs, Humble, Heart Part 4, which didn't make this album, but
yeah,
it's, I don't know. I don't think he's really taken much influence from Drake, because I think Drake is more different, because the production style is more mainstream, I would say, more boom bap, more accessible.
Yeah.
But I think his lyrical game is still just as good as it was before.
Definitely. It's just in a more simplified context with these songs make it seem more simple, just in the way they're produced and made, but definitely hasn't dropped the ball in any sense.
What would you rate this album, Alex?
It's a tough one because even though I loved every song, basically, and it really got me thinking, like, this is the album that's most likely my score will change with another listen, definitely. But I'm going to give it 8. Might seem a bit low because I'm not the biggest Kendrick Lamar fan. I've not even heard Section 80 or Untitled Unmastered ever, but this was really good and thought-provoking. One of the best rap albums this year, obviously. Probably the best of the whole year when we're talking end of the year. Kendrick knows how to make great, thought-provoking songs, catchy, so much depth, so much talent. Like, his rapping, we haven't even talked about his rapping skills because we don't need to. He sounds that good the whole way through. It's an 8 out of 10. Yeah. Great stuff.
So, I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I know I was, like, praising it and that, but I think maybe it'll grow on me over time, but there were, I would say, 2 songs, Loyalty and Love, which were not his best songs, I would say. But he also had some of the best songs he's written on here too.
True.
So it's a good album. The concept, the complexity of it really does make it a good album. And I'm just impressed because every time he puts out an album, it's another good album. Now, there are so many people complaining, oh, it's not Good Kid, Mad City, oh, it's not To Pimp a Butterfly. Well, that's people as being super butthurt because they want more. They don't want to evolve their taste in music.
He has made 2 of the best albums of the 2010s. Arguably a third if you really like this, which we do. I don't think we call it one of the best of this decade, but he has already made 2 of the best. I think he deserves like a light-hearted, slightly break while still making a really great album.
But it's not even that. If you listen to the lyrics, it is so much more complex than it seems to be, which is what is making me slightly upset because people are just listening to it once, throwing it off for like, oh, it's too mainstream, I don't like it anymore.
That's true, but I'm just satisfied. I'm just sitting here satisfied because everyone was laughing and doubting at the U2 feature, and they end up being the best feature and one of the best songs on the album. I'm just sitting here like, oh, yeah. Yes, Bono, you showed them.
Well, if that's it, then thanks for tuning to Busted Speakers. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know what you think about Damn in the comments below, and check us out on social media.
Damn!